were not many people who understood just how broad his interests were and how supportive he was of an astonishingly wide range.
Wait! Prince Philip chose not to live with his wife, Queen Elizabeth? Yeah, you heard that right. If you're just now picking your jaw up from the floor, trust us, you're not alone. In an unexpected yet shocking revelation that turned heads and, of course, raised eyebrows, Princess Anne just spilled the royal tea on why her Prince Philip chose not to share a home with the Queen. And yes, King Charles and Prince Andrew are tangled in this royal revelation too. So why would the Queen's husband of over 70 years choose to live apart? Was it love, duty, or something the palace never wanted the public to know? Get ready to uncover the secrets behind the palace walls, because Princess Anne isn't holding back. The royal secret that shocked everyone. Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the walls of Buckingham Palace? For decades, we thought we were watching the most iconic love story unfold. A well-respected queen and her devoted husband standing side by side through history.
Prince Philip was writing, quite dashing things about her, saying, and she's lovely all over.
For many years, they waved from balconies together, attended dinners in typical classical royal family elegance, and celebrated over 70 years of marriage with grace most couples could only dream of. But behind it all, things were different, and it's nothing you ever expected. And now, in the most unexpected revelation, Princess Anne, the Queen's famously blunt daughter, just revealed what was going on behind the high palace walls, and especially the reason why Prince Philip didn't live with the Queen. Was there trouble brewing in the royal family? Or was this the most private royal arrangement of them all? So well hidden, no one ever saw it coming? In Prince Philip's later years, he retired to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate, far away from Buckingham Palace, and even further from the media frenzy of London. There, he spent his time reading, painting, walking in the countryside, and cooking for himself. Yes, the Duke of Edinburgh, husband to the late Queen of England, was frying bacon and flipping his eggs. The man who was well known for commanding ships and standing behind his wife, the Queen, through thick and thin, suddenly wanted a bit of space. And the Queen respected that. It wasn't scandalous, like many might have thought, or bitter. According to Princess Anne, who inherited some of her father's fierce personality, it was simply how their relationship worked, and they understood each other well enough. So now we are left wondering, if Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, the ultimate royal pair, didn't live under the same roof, what does it say about the monarchy, about love, and the cost of duty at the highest level? To fully understand why Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth II chose to live separately in their later years, we must first rewind to the beginning of one of the most enduring yet conventional love stories in modern royal history. And trust us, this isn't the usual boy meets princess kind of love tale. A royal marriage like no other. Before there were royal babies, palaces, and even the spotlight, there was just a teenage girl who fell head over heels for a dashing naval cadet, which sounds just like the beginning of a Disney movie, right?
And sat in the royal box with them, and the interval came. And I stood at the side of the room with the Duke of Edinburgh.
But this was real, and it would go on to shape the future of the British monarchy for over 70 years. So, how did it begin? The first time Queen Elizabeth met Prince Philip, she was just an 8-year-old attending a wedding with her family for Princess Marina and Prince George back in 1934. Nothing interesting happened back then. I mean, they were just kids. Well, 5 years later, 13-year-old Elizabeth was visiting the Royal Naval College at Dartmouth with her parents and younger sister Margaret, when her eyes caught something that instantly took her breath away. 18-year-old Prince Philip, who was a cadet there. He was tall, blonde, athletic, and full of confidence. And in that moment, Princess Elizabeth was smitten and couldn't take her eyes off him. She watched him play tennis, giggled at his jokes, and followed him with her eyes all day. According to those who were there, she never looked at another man again. One meeting, and her heart had already decided what she wanted. They spent the days afterward sharing handwritten letters about everything. At that time, Philip was off serving in the Royal Navy during World War II, fighting on the front line, while Elizabeth remained in England, waiting and hoping. As the war ended and peace returned, their connection only grew. By 1946, Philip was visiting Balmoral Castle as a guest. But, to be honest, everyone knew what was going on. He went on to ask Elizabeth's father, King George VI, for her hand in marriage. But that was where things got complicated. To be frank, Prince Philip wasn't the dream son-in-law the king had imagined. Yes, he was a prince, but a Greek prince, exiled, broke, and with royalties across Europe. Before he was Queen Elizabeth's husband, Prince Philip was born on a kitchen table at a villa in Corfu. His full title was Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark. His family was royal, Greek and Danish, and his grandfather was literally imported from Denmark to become King of Greece. Philip's father, Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark, was a younger brother of King Constantine, placing Philip sixth in line to the Greek throne, and his mother, Princess Alice of Battenberg, was a woman with her own dramatic story. Now, here's the twist. Both Prince Philip and Elizabeth's father, King George VI, were both great-grandchildren of Queen Victoria. Yep, which makes Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth third cousins. As for how Prince Philip ended up in exile, that story's coming in the next video. Did we mention he had no British citizenship, no clear title, and definitely no power? So to the royal family, Philip was too brash, too foreign, and too much risk. But Elizabeth didn't care. She was in love, and for a woman born into duty, this was a choice she wasn't willing to sacrifice. Eventually, the king had to give in, but with conditions. Philip was expected to give up his Greek and Danish titles and become a British citizen. He also had to take a new name, Mountbatten, anglicized from his maternal family's name, Battenberg. Surprisingly, he agreed. On November 20, 1947, millions of people across Britain tuned in by radio to listen to the royal wedding of Princess Elizabeth and Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten. Although Britain was still recovering from the aftermath of World War II, the wedding felt like a moment of hope, a fairy tale brought to life. But not all fairy tales come easy. Despite the changes Prince Philip had to make to marry his dream woman, the palace was still uneasy about Philip. Some royals refused to attend the wedding. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen's mother, called him a Hun. Even the Parliament debated whether he deserved to be given the Prince title. Eventually, everyone had no choice but to accept him. And just a year after their wedding, on November 14, 1948, the young couple welcomed their first child, Charles Philip Arthur George, in Buckingham Palace. Philip, modern-minded as ever, was present at the birth, a rare move for a royal husband at that time. Prince Charles was the heir to the throne after his mother, but at that moment, to Philip, he was just his son. 2 years later, on August 15, 1950, they welcomed a daughter, Princess Anne, who was spirited, headstrong, and much like Philip himself. For a brief moment, life was exactly what they wanted. Elizabeth and Philip were living a relatively quiet life in Malta Town House, while Philip continued his service in the Royal Navy. No crown, no pomp, just love, duty, and children. Little did they know that in an instant, their little quiet life was about to change. Something unexpected was about to begin that would change the course of their lives forever. Prince Philip's silent struggle. In 1952, Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip were on their usual tour. This time they visited Kenya, and the young princess had gone to a treehouse as a daughter, only to come down as a queen. Her father, King George VI, had died in his sleep, and just like that, their lives changed forever. Princess Elizabeth was now Queen Elizabeth II, sovereign of the United Kingdom and the head of the Commonwealth.
Someone who doesn't take easily to compliments, but he has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years.
But what about Philip? What would become of him? Prince Philip knew deep down that his career was officially over. One day, he was a naval officer with his command, mission, and identity. And the next day, his wife was the Queen, and his new role was to walk 2 steps behind her for the rest of his life. It was a hard pill for him to swallow, not because he wasn't proud of his wife, but because he understood, perhaps much more than anyone, that his life was no longer his own. According to reports, he told his friends, "I'm nothing but a bloody amoeba. I am the only man in the country not allowed to give his name to his children." Yep, even his children would take Windsor, not his name, Mountbatten. To him, he was living in a nightmare he could never wake up from. He felt humiliated, angry, and frustrated. But, in public, he smiled and supported his wife. As Queen, Elizabeth was instantly consumed by duties, tours, public appearances, and briefings. Philip had to figure out how to be a royal consort, a husband, and a father, all at the same time. The worst part of it all was that there was no job description for the royal husband, no rule book, and no path forward. Just 2 steps behind for the rest of his life. The British press painted him as cold, even rude at times, but maybe what they saw wasn't arrogance. It was a man trying to keep his dignity while being constantly told to disappear into the background. But here's where Philip decided it was time to take charge of his boat amidst the chaos in his life. Instead of fading and lingering behind the shadow of his wife, he forged his own path. First, he modernized royal operations, championed conservation, and founded the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, which went on to shape millions of lives across over 140 countries. In no time, he became the monarchy's engine room, always running things behind the scenes. He was also known as a hands-on dad, and wasn't about to let the royal family take that away from him. He taught Charles how to ride horses, how to fish, and how to be tough. But their relationship wasn't the typical father-son relationship. In fact, it was complicated. And while Prince Philip was rugged, blunt, and believed in emotional resilience, Charles was the sensitive kid. Some said Philip pushed Charles too hard, trying to mold him into a proper man, while others believed he was trying to prepare him for life as a king, which is often under intense public scrutiny. Princess Anne, on the other hand, was more like her father. She shared his no-nonsense attitude and stubborn independence.
And what does that shift look like for you?
Things like that will change, and how we are part of the support for the monarchy may change slightly.
In fact, according to Anne, she was closer to her father than her mother. As the monarchy began to settle under a new ruler, Queen Elizabeth, she and her husband had 2 more children. Prince Andrew, born February 19, 1960, and Prince Edward, born March 10, 1964. Despite the weight of the crown, Elizabeth and Philip remained deeply devoted to each other. In a rare personal moment, the Queen once said, "He's someone who doesn't take compliments, but he has, quite simply, been my strength and stayed all these years." It was quite obvious that they loved each other very much, but while it seemed like they'd got their new life figured out, something else began to brew. Rumors of possible infidelity stunned the entire world, but the real question was, were the rumors true? Or was it all a desperate attempt to put the king consort in the Queen's shadow all over again? Did Prince Philip cheat on the Queen? There are gray areas when it comes to this subject. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles were married for decades, but was it all as perfect as it seemed? Or was there more to their lives than meets the eye? For decades, rumors circled the palace. Names floated through newspapers about mysterious women, late-night dinners, and sudden disappearances. And while the Queen never spoke about it publicly, one royal biographer did, loud and clear. During an interview in 2004, Sarah Bradford, respected royal biographer and author of Elizabeth, A Biography of Her Majesty the Queen, when asked about Prince Philip's alleged affair, said, "Yes, he had affairs, and the Queen accepts it. I think she thinks that's how men are. He's never been one for chasing actresses," she continued. "His interests are quite different. The women he goes for are always younger than him, usually beautiful and highly aristocratic." Just like that, the polished image of the British power couple cracked, and that was enough for royal watchers to light a fire. Let's take a step back to the 1950s and 60s. The Queen was young and the monarchy modernized. Prince Philip looked like a movie star. He was tall, dashing, charming, and had a mischievous glint in his eye. Paparazzi loved him. Well, so did the women. He was often photographed out late without the Queen, at gentlemen's clubs and exclusive house parties. So it was only normal for rumors to follow. Among the whispered names was Pat Kirkwood, a famous stage actress known for her shapely legs, her wit, and her supposed affair with Philip in 1948, which, of course, she denied till she passed away. There's also Helene Corday, a French singer, television host, and godmother to two of Philip's children. She had 2 kids out of wedlock, and rumors swirled about the paternity of her kids, with several fingers pointing at you-know-who. He was also linked to Sacha Abercorn, a society beauty back in the 50s, and many other women. And yet, no evidence, no photos, no scandalous letters, no nothing, only silence from the palace and curiosity from the world. While the rumors swirled, everyone wanted to know what Queen Elizabeth thought about it, but she never once addressed the rumors, not even a hint. She kept her gaze steady, her voice calm, and her public appearance flawless. Was it because she knew it wasn't true, or is it because she already knew and didn't want it to define her marriage? According to insider and biographer Sarah Bradford, Elizabeth was never naive. She grew up in a world of royalty. She understood the rules, sacrifices, and secrets. She knew the man she was married to. He was restless, independent, and flirty, but he was also devoted to her. To this day, Buckingham Palace has not acknowledged, denied, or even responded to the rumors. Not once. Why? Perhaps because in the royal family, accepting a rumor gave it life, and their silence was the answer. Besides, the Queen once famously said, "Don't complain, don't explain." Philip probably lived by that too. Although Philip's decision to live away from his wife had fueled more rumors about the reason, Princess Anne, alongside her brothers, had something to say about the situation. Keep watching to find out. The real reason Prince Philip lived apart from the Queen. When Prince Philip decided he wanted to move out of the Queen's official home and into Wood Farm, a modest house tucked away on the Sandringham estate, everyone had questions. Why would the Queen's husband of more than 7 decades choose to live alone? Was something wrong in their marriage? Or was he sick of palace life? For years, the answer was silence. Well, until Princess Anne pulled back the curtains to address what the public had speculated for years. There has been some speculation that the reason Prince Philip decided to leave the palace was because of Queen Elizabeth. But according to Princess Anne, her father just wanted some peace and privacy. After decades of public duty, endless walkabouts, ribbon cuttings, state dinners, speeches, and thousands of royal appearances, Prince Philip decided in his 90s that it was time to retire from royal life. In 2017, at the age of 96, Prince Philip officially stepped back from public duties, and soon after he relocated to Wood Farm, a 5-bedroom farmhouse without footmen, flunkies, and the suffocating formality of Buckingham Palace. According to his children, Anne, Charles, Andrew, and Edward, this was something he had planned for a long time, and they all supported this move, including Queen Elizabeth. For a man who spent decades being told what to do, where to walk, where to stand, and what not to say, a little normalcy was all he craved. So what exactly did the prince do during his time in that farmhouse? If you thought he sat in a rocking chair and watched his dogs run around, think again. While in solitude, Prince Philip was endlessly curious and active mentally and physically. One thing he did constantly was read. He also painted a lot, wrote letters, and took long walks on the beach. He was also obsessed with technology. Long before the palace had an Instagram page or TikTok fever, Prince Philip was the first royal to use a computer. Back in the 1980s, he had one installed in the palace to explore design, engineering, and science, his lifelong passions. He even joked that the courtiers were terrified of it, but he found it fascinating. At Wood Farm, Philip kept using technology to stay connected. He sent emails, kept up with scientific journals, and even video called his grandchildren. Now, let's talk about his relationship with the Queen during those days. Did they see each other? Of course they did. The Queen often visited Wood Farm. They had lunch together, tea, quiet evenings away from the cameras. Most importantly, they understood each other's need for space. Another major reason why Prince Philip decided it was time to retire completely was a car crash that happened in 2019. 97-year-old Prince Philip, who sometimes enjoyed driving, thought it would be nice to take a drive near Sandringham. But while pulling out of a driveway in his Land Rover, he collided with another car carrying 2 women and a baby. It was sudden. His vehicle flipped, but miraculously, no one was killed, though one woman suffered a broken wrist. As expected, this time of recklessness attracted public backlash, especially after Prince Philip was seen driving again only a few days later without a seatbelt. As a result of the public's disapproval, he decided it was time to give up his driver's license, ending a driving streak that spanned over 7 decades. He also personally apologized to the victims. Ever since then, he chose to stay away from the public eye. Since he particularly loved driving, back in his Wood Farm, he continued carriage driving, a hobby he picked up in the 1970s and settled in for more quiet activities. But at this point, it was obvious he was getting weaker, and life had other plans for him, something everyone knew would eventually happen. The end of an era. In the early 2021, Prince Philip's health deteriorated fast. He was hospitalized for an infection and later treated for a heart condition. After nearly a month of being in the hospital, he returned home to Windsor Castle, where he spent time with his family like he knew what was coming. Unfortunately, on April 9, 2021, just a few months before his 100th birthday, Prince Philip passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 99. He didn't quite make it to 100, but he came close. More importantly, he went on his own terms, quietly and privately. Losing Prince Philip hit the Queen harder than anyone else. They'd been married for 73 years, and he had been through every chapter of her reign. How could she recover from this? Over the next year, the Queen's health gradually declined. She missed several key public events, and it was clear her strength was fading and her time was near. Sadly, on September 8, 2022, Queen Elizabeth II passed away at Balmoral Castle, surrounded by her family. Their passing marked the end of a royal era and was mourned around the globe, not just because they were monarchies, but because they represented something steady and long-lasting. The couple weren't perfect during their lifetime, but they were real and deeply connected to history. And that's why, even after their demise, they still had the world's attention. What do you think about Princess Anne's revelation about Prince Philip living away from the Queen? And what could be his reason? Tell us in the comments below. Don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.